Tomorrow at noon, both houses of the Minnesota legislature are in session as the second special session continues. Among the unfinished business, police reform, a $1 billion+ infrastructure, jobs and bonding bill, help for riot-torn Minneapolis and St. Paul, and more. Republican Senate Majority Leader Paul Gazelka was a guest on this show last month after the end of the last special session. And joining us right now, it is our honor to have the governor of Minnesota, Governor Tim Walz. Thank you so much for coming in. We certainly appreciate your time.
Well, it's great to be here in person, too, with you, Esme.
Absolutely. I know that, first of all, I know that you were interested in speaking about somebody that you served in Congress with, Congressman John Lewis, who passed this past few days.
Yeah, I think the nation's mourning. I think the one thing is the civil rights icon, the leader that the country knows from John Lewis. I think the thing that sometimes people might not know is what a dear friend he was to so many in Congress. I always took every advantage to go sit with John on the floor between votes, and the one thing whenever families would come visit, one of the things we as members of Congress enjoy doing is taking their children down on the floor to meet people, and I would always take them to John, and it was amazing to me that the amount of time he spent in his hand with children was just amazing. So I've been getting texts and calls this week from parents who were out visiting DC for a summer vacation and their children had the chance to meet John Lewis. And so I think that kindness, that compassion was a lesson for all of us. And I think as Vice President Biden said, it's hard to believe sometimes that someone of flesh and blood lived the life that John did, and it influenced all of us. So I'm sad to see him gone. I think our mission is to continue his legacy.
Well, let me ask you about that, because certainly police reform front and center tomorrow at the Capitol. Are you going to get this done? It sounds like everything is interconnected, and if you can't get all of it done, none of it will get done. Is that right? Well,
I think so. I mean, legislating is that way. It sometimes appears to be a house of cards. I think first and foremost that the public has made it very clear watching George Floyd die on the streets of Minneapolis sparked the conscience of this country, that George Floyd was just one of many unfortunate incidents where the police don't have the trust of the public in some cases, in many cases. And so with that being said, I think there's a desire both from the police and from citizens to try and work this out. We're trying to get some reforms. I think the one thing people want is accountability. They want, if someone has 50 of these violations, they want to know that somebody's looking at them.
But has there been any movement over the past few days?
I would say yes, and I don't want to speak out of turn. I'm confident that we are going to get some reforms. I am also confident they're not going to be as much as we need to, but that's somewhat of the nature of this, and we can move it forward and we can make sure that people believe we're moving in the right direction. I think you'll start to see that accountability reforms at post board.
And I understand you and Senator Gazelka had rather an extraordinary meeting involving some of the families of those who have lost loved ones to police violence. Tell us about that.
Yeah, this is a group I've been meeting with. Toshira Galloway, who's the father of her daughter, lost his life in St. Paul. Delshia Perry, Hardel Sherrill, who died up in the Beltrami County Jail. Of course, Valerie Castillo and others. We've been meeting, and one of the things they asked is could we get together with Senator Gazelka? And he immediately said yes, and we spent about an hour. The families would tell their stories, some of the things that they asked for.
And when was this?
That would have been Friday, I believe, Friday morning. So we spent some time with that. And I think those are the types of things that there's a goodwill effort to try and get there. One of the things the families were upset with is police unions were brought in to testify in the Senate, but they weren't allowed. And there weren't any hearings on what happened to George Floyd. It was all in the aftermath, which certainly we need to get to the bottom of and understand, but we also need to know that this was all sparked by these incidents of police violence against citizens.
Let me switch gears to COVID. A mask ordinance. Sounds like that's coming. When?
Yeah, and candidly on this is first of all, the science is pretty solid. And if we want to open schools and we want to keep our businesses open and keep our numbers below 5% like we've had them in terms of positivity rate, the mask is the cheapest and the easiest way to do that. Cities across Minnesota, businesses like Walmart and Target, I've been trying to get folks, well, I would think probably soon. And I say this in that I wanted to try and build Republican support for this. I asked them, I said, you know what would really send a strong message is if Republican leadership in the House and Senate introduced the legislation. They keep talking about they don't want me to use executive orders. I said, fine, then please issue this. Because when they don't, folks like Mayor Emerson out in White Bear Lake, they do it on their own. they're showing leadership. So the thing that I can tell you is that the last couple of days we've been at 2.8% positivity. We jumped back up to 4.4 today, and that's on pretty heavy volume of testing. Minnesota is still at a place with testing, tracing, and isolation that we can keep a handle on this, keep our businesses open, get our schools open if we do this.
How about the schools? Because I have to think that everybody with school-age children is just waiting on pins and needles. I mean,
Me
is it going to be
Yeah.
part-time, online? I mean, what is it going to be?
We've spent months on this. When I say we, not just Department of Education, Department of Health, not just in state government or school districts, it's with parents. And we've talked to 130,000 parents trying to gather this information. We're using the best data. The one thing about COVID is every day the data starts to change. And to be very honest, the mixed message we get from the federal government has been very challenging. What I'm telling folks is, both as governor, as a lifelong teacher, and as a parent of a 13-year-old, students are best when they're in school. That is absolutely my goal, but they have to be safe. We have to keep our children safe. We have to keep those staff that are in that school safe. We want to get something out before the end of the month. It will be based on the best data. It will be where Minnesota's at in this. And it will, I think I would just tell parents and school districts, I think know this is, probably during this year, there's a chance we'll be in-class meetings. We'll have hybrid of in-class and distant learning, and we may have distant learning. I think the one thing we need to prepare ourselves for is there is going to be a confluence with the usual flu season with COVID, probably mid-November. We're going to have to keep our eye on that. The one thing that's difficult for people to wrap their mind around is we're always about 2 or 3 weeks behind what the numbers show of where COVID is going. And so modeling, people hang their hats on modeling. Models are all wrong, but some are better predictors of where we're headed. And here in Minnesota, I think we've been able to predict that out, keep that number flat, but I'm very concerned about in the fall. But what I would tell parents, we want to get your kids back in school. We want to make sure they're safe, and we want to make sure that we're using the best science to do that.
All right. Well, Governor Tim Walz, thank you so much for your time. We certainly appreciate your coming in this morning.
Thanks, Esme.
All right.